and welcome to Heart of Hope. I'm one of your hosts, Rachel Griffin, and my co-host...
Me!
No, not me! You say your name. Ready?
Oh, Hannah!
But I tend to call her Beck, because I'm used to calling her Beck. So
Yeah.
sometimes you'll hear me say Beck. That's the truths.
I know. I confuse everyone.
What?
I said I confuse everyone.
You do. So today, right, as you know, we tend to talk about topics related to supporting families with children with autism. We share experiences, not just from the autism side. Like I have two children on the spectrum, and my sister, she shares her perspective as a parent or experience she's had working with young kids as well with different mental health challenges. So we like to give an all-round podcast that's family friendly. It's fun, and we delve into some topics. Sometimes difficult, sometimes not, but we have fun with it. So today's topic is screen time, pros and cons. So I'm as an autism parent, we all know that experience from the autism side of, your child's having a meltdown, you hand them the iPad and you get the look, you get the stare, you get the muttering under the breath of, oh, here we go, iPad parenting. But I think it's important that we look at how it benefits children as well as how it can have a detrimental effect. It's not just all negatives. So, Han, I'm going to take the question over to you. What are your thoughts about screen time? So that includes iPads, it includes mobile phones, it includes anything really that involves a screen that's techie. So what are your thoughts on it in general?
So for me, I am a bit like anybody who really knows me. I'm a bit funny about technology. Like poor Des is like 12 this year, and she didn't have her first tablet till she was. I'm laughing because I know people will think this is insane, but she was 7 or 8 before I let her have any sort of like tablet, anything like that. Like she didn't have a phone. She had a very basic kids Amazon tab, and she could barely do anything on it. But like she could play a few games, she could do like a reading,
Yeah.
and that was it. And like I think she was 7. Yeah, she would have been 6, maybe 6. Like, and that was it. All I'd let her have. And the same year that she had her Amazon tablet, so she would say 6, maybe 7. Like all her other family members, whose cousins and all this, had their Amazon tablets, like kids tabs, and they were like 3, And I felt like total mum guilt because I thought, oh, they're all having. Sorry, my little one sat by you. They were all having like tablets and stuff like that, and I thought, well, I'm going to stick to my guns because the last thing I wanted was to have a child who just sat on an iPad all day. Like that's not the way I wanted to parent. So I am a bit funny about. I am a little bit funny about technology. Whereas, so Destiny's 12 now this year. She did have an iPhone the Christmas that she had just turned 10. It wasn't a new iPhone, it was secondhand and da. But then I felt like she was able to manage that because she'd learned responsibility, because I'd restricted the use of the tablet, and I'd been very strict on it, and you could only have it so many hours a day, and da. She kind of became grateful then. So then when she had her iPhone, she's been like fantastic with it. So I am quite funny about technology, and I'm a bit funny about the uses of it and how long we spend on it. I am a bit strict like that, yeah.
But you know what? I think you've brought up quite a good point actually, which I hadn't really considered until you started talking about it. And that is the difficulty around technology and when. And also when your kids have friends and those friends are getting technology at a certain age, they're saying, well, my kids get, not my kid, my friend has got a phone, my friend has got an iPad. And so then you question yourself then, is it the right time? Is it too early? I mean, personally for us, I think Elena had her first, I call it an iPad, it's an Amazon tablet.
Yeah.
She had hers at 7. And again, like you say, you know, playing with the games more than anything. She didn't really use it for watching anything. It was more for playing games.
Hmm.
And only for her 13th birthday she get an iPhone, and again,
Yeah.
second hand. But I think it all depends on the child.
Yeah.
So when you consider learning responsibility, a child with learning disabilities compared to a neurotypical child that doesn't have any learning disabilities, I think you're not going to be giving them technology at the same age, at the
Yeah.
same rate.
I agree.
Personally, I believe there is an age that is too young for technology,
I
but at the
agree.
same time, I think it depends on the circumstances as well.
Yeah.
So, like, as an example, I think putting a TV in a 3-year-old's bedroom, whether you think it helps them go to sleep or not, I do not agree with it. I don't think it's right
Yeah.
because their brains are still developing and growing. But that's my personal preference,
Yeah.
that's my
No, I
personal
agree.
opinion. But then again, my little boy, he's only just turned 6, you know, and he's played with our phones, obviously not all the time, but we'd hand him a phone to play games on since 2, you know, but that's not continuous screen time. That's here's a
Mm.
little game, you know, that you can play
Yes,
with.
exactly.
So I think it's all about balance. It's all about
Yeah.
balance and proportion, but we live in a world of screens. We cannot escape it.
Yeah.
It is part of the daily living. And I
Amazing.
suppose in a way it's good to get our kids used to understanding screens. They're using screens in school a lot, but there are limits and there should be
Mm.
boundaries.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really important because, like, obviously, my Destiny's coming into those teenage years now, isn't she? And, like, obviously, in the job I work in now,
Yeah.
work with a lot of young people. And oh, dear me. Like, screw, like, oh, if you ask them to hand in their phone for anything, and it's like, you'd think you'd sent them to prison for the day. Like, you know? And, and I do say that. I'm like, you swear I'm asking you to go to prison for the day. Like, I'm only asking you for your phone or whatever it is, you know, or get off your phone for, you know? But that is, like you said, that
Yeah.
world that we are kind of like living in and unfortunately bringing our kids up in. So I think you kind of got to start as you mean to go on. But I think you are right. It does to kind of like depend on the child, isn't it? Like you have got to kind of like take that into
Yeah.
consideration.
Yeah, I think so. So I'm gonna read out some facts that we did a little bit of research for this episode to really kind of give a good perspective on using screens. And globally, young people, so the average is 6 hours a day using screens. Now, I'm not sure whether that includes weekends, but say it doesn't, say that's during the week. That means when they're in school all day, they come home and they're spending a further 6 hours on screens. Now, whether that's watching TV as well, or
Mm.
whether it's just playing with games, I'm not sure. But that is a lot of hours, and that's on average. But then when you look at it in more detail, 53% of those young people are either disabled or neurodivergent.
Mm.
And neurodivergent kids tend to be on screens longer than 4.5 hours a day, whereas their neurotypical peers only spend 3 hours a day on screens.
Yeah.
So when you look at that finer detail, what I don't see in the facts is the context. And context matters. I always say this is, but where's the context? What situation is it? What circumstance is it? Because for a neurodivergent child who has communication issues and they use an AAC or they use a form of technology that is on a screen to help them and empower them to communicate their needs, then yes, they are going to spend more time on a screen.
Yeah.
For children who struggle socially and have high anxiety, they will spend a little bit more time on a screen.
Yeah.
And for those who have meltdowns, if parents can try anything and everything, and sometimes the screen is the one thing that will bring them and calm them down very quickly. So I just think it's easy to look at the facts and the figures and go, oh my word, they spend that much time on screens. but I
Yeah.
just think it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
A good example of a situation that is not positive, and I think would be come under like the neurotypical side, is when I watched this episode of Super Nanny, and this parent was juggling a couple of kids. She, was trying to cook dinner. She was dealing with a lot of different things. And so her son loved to play games on the computer. And so you could tell this was a couple of years old, this episode, because it was one of those computers where you play video games on the computer.
Yeah.
And he would be playing, and dinner would be ready. She'd put his meal next to the keyboard where he's typing. Playing.
Mm.
So it's like she was enabling what
Yeah.
became an addiction to technology by feeding him his meals at the screen.
Mm.
And he was doing that day after day after day. And one day they went out to go have breakfast at a restaurant, and they're walking to the car, and all of a sudden he drops to the floor. So she has to rush him into the doctor's, and the doctor turns to her and says, "How long has he been staring at a screen?" He knew
Yeah.
within seconds of looking into his eyes, he knew he'd been staring into a screen for far too long. And I think now that example is, unfortunately, it's not good. I don't agree with judging parents. I think, parents have different circumstances and challenges to deal with, but the
Yeah.
enabling came in with giving meals at the screen. I
Yeah.
think it should have been, right, it's dinner time now, away from the screen. Let's eat food together, as a way to draw him away from that behavior.
Absolutely.
So it's like, how much is too much? That's one thing to look
Definitely.
at.
Yeah, and I think that is something like, and there is a large percentage of parents who do it, and you do get it because we're working more. Like, parents, we're not in a society anymore where just one parent can work and one parent can stay at home with the children. We're in a society now where both parents are having to work, both parents are tired, both parents are only off on the weekends, so they want to lie in, and so they're tired.
Mm,
So when the kids are
mm,
screaming and they want to go on the iPad, 90% of the time it's 7 o'clock in the morning, use the iPad so I can catch up on some sleep. So we kind of like
mm.
understand and you get it. But it's like that old saying in there, you make a rod for your own back. Because what ends up happening
Yeah,
is that's all that child knows now is, oh, well, I get the iPad first thing in the morning and I sit on the iPad and all day and all day and all day, and that's all they know. Um,
yeah,
um, so I think it is really
yeah.
dangerous
No,
how.
exactly, because
Go on.
yeah, I agree with you, and I think back to when we were kids. And we used to do fun craft activities with mum. We would like do those seashell frames, for
Yeah.
photo frames, and we would like create different art pieces that were fun. And it's like, when you're able to be a stay-at-home parent, you can plan those kind of fun activities with your children. You can
Yeah.
think, right, when we get home, we'll do a bit of art and craft, or when they get home from school, we can do this activity, that activity. You can plan it and you can
Yeah.
prepare it. But when you're working full time, and we live in a society where both parents pretty much 90% of the time have to work full time,
Mm.
it's like trying to balance keeping a house, cooking, keeping the kids entertained.
Yeah.
By the time you finish at 5 o'clock, what time do you have to
Yeah.
plan something fun as a family that
Yeah.
doesn't involve, right, they've got home from school, kids, TV, I'm going to cook your dinner and get your
Exactly.
dinner for you,
Yeah.
So it's a challenge.
Yeah. It is really difficult, isn't it? And like being a single parent myself, like it's that because I'm so funny with technology, it is a battle. Like it's not easy, and it's easy to like feel like, oh, do you know what? Just give in. Like I've got a Nintendo Switch here, and it's easy to say to the kids, "Oh, go on, just go and play for the Switch," da. But to be fair now, because
Yeah.
I'm from the beginning, I've been so strict with technology. That doesn't bother them now. They're quite happy to sit in colour for a couple of hours while I put the Hoover around or whatever. So I think you've got to like start as you mean to go on, haven't you? But it's not like no, nobody's saying they're different. It's not easy. Like it is a battle in there. And once you've got a kid
Yeah.
that's kind of like addicted almost, it's hard to come out of that. It is really difficult.
And I think you've hit a key point there is, you know, like your children will happily colour at a table and do an activity that's quite quiet and calm. And I think that is such a precious thing to be able to have, because for some parents with children with a neurodiversity, you can't leave them to colour. Like if I left Lucas to colour anything, he would rip the paper, he would chew on the crayons, he would
Mm.
probably throw it in the air like confetti, then he
Yeah,
would go and find something else and break that. And so I just think that's why I can kind of see from the other side of it why parents turn to a screen.
yeah.
I mean, you could even really say that the TV is a screen, right? It's not just about
Oh, I
iPads, it's
agree.
not
Yeah,
just about phones. So, like, if I want to do anything that I have to get done, it's Paw Patrol on the TV, trying to keep an eye on him and get things done. It's the only way for us to do things sometimes.
yeah, of course.
Um, and that is tough. It's tough to find that balance. And like out and about, you go to a restaurant, they're taking forever with your food, and the only thing that you know will keep your child happy while they wait is your phone, is an
Yeah,
iPad. And
mm,
it's like, where do you find the balance? So I
yeah,
think it is tough for parents with
I agree.
neurodivergent children,
And
because
yeah,
A, if you don't give them a screen and they have a meltdown, you get judged for that meltdown,
yeah,
for them screaming, for them taking food off other people's plates,
yeah,
for them getting louder and louder. But then if you give them that iPad to reduce that behaviour, you get judgment for giving them an iPad to
yeah, yeah,
stop the
yeah.
behaviour. So it's a really difficult position to be
Pretty
in.
hard, isn't it? Yeah. And this is where,
Yeah,
like, you look at the pros and the cons, and I think, especially when you've got like neurodivergent children, and those examples you've given, those are the pros of it. When you're in that
yeah,
situation, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, actually, like,
absolutely.
we need to keep the peace, otherwise there's going to be world war, yeah? Like, so there are
Yeah,
pros and
yeah,
cons.
exactly. Yeah, because I think like I've got a list of pros and cons here that we drafted up and talked about, and one of the pros is it can aid with learning. So
Yeah,
when Lucas was only 2, he loved this game on one of our phones, and it's got this sloth, and you have to feed the sloth, and he was getting his finger and dragging the food towards the sloth's mouth, which is pretty
yeah,
cool skill to have, to be honest. And I just thought that's pretty clever for 2,
yeah,
So in some ways, games like that can aid with learning. In terms of communication, like some of the children, young people with communication difficulties, they'll use AAC or they'll use an iPad with a communication app on it.
yeah,
And I just think anything that promotes them to be included and communicate is definitely a pro.
definitely.
Again, developing skills. There's so many different games. There's so many different things that you can do and learn on an iPad now, and what through TV, through phone. You can search things, and like I mentioned earlier, self-regulation. If a
Yeah,
meltdown's going to happen, and you know that to help calm down, an iPad is going to help self-regulate, it's a
yeah,
pro, because you want to take them
absolutely.
out of that feeling of being out of control.
Yeah,
But then there's also cons, and I think this is where the balance needs to be really good, because on the one hand, the iPad self regulates,
hmm,
but on the other, if you're on it too long, it'll affect sleep.
absolutely.
And I attended a sleep course today, actually, and it looked at melatonin, and it said that a kid who's neurodivergent, so ADHD or autism, they have a lot less melatonin, which is the hormone that helps with sleep. And so if you imagine they've already got a reduced amount of melatonin that helps regulate and get you to sleep, and then they're on an iPad and they say technology now before bed is not good,
Yeah,
then that is going to have an even more of an impact on their sleep. Um, and as well as promoting communication, it can also limit communication. And we know this from teenagers. You know, they hashtag live in their phones. They would rather send you a WhatsApp meme than actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
So,
Guess he
so
loves a
we know
gift.
it can limit, yeah, a gif or a meme,
Yeah.
rather than telling you something in a sentence.
Yeah.
Um, it can limit
I
communication.
agree.
And as we mentioned earlier, it causes addictive behaviour.
Mm.
So spending hours scrolling, spending hours playing games, and then of course that then causes them to be quite mentally tired and drained,
Yeah.
and it probably doesn't help with mental health either, because
I
as we
agree.
know, getting out and about in the sun, going for walks,
Yeah.
being active, all these things promote good mental health.
Yeah.
So sitting for hours on a device probably does not.
I agree.
But I think it is one of those things that, how do you handle it moving forward in a situation where your child has got a brain difference, has learning difficulties, has autism, has ADHD? They're not going to navigate life the same
No.
as a neurotypical child. So, what kind of boundaries do we put in place, and how
Mm.
flexible should we be with them, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think everybody's got to be kind to themselves as well, especially when you've got neurodivergent children and it's like life is hard and you're doing what you can. I think that's really important to be like, it's not like you're not a bad parent if you do let your kids sit on a tablet. Like you're not a bad parent. You're just doing what you got to do, you know?
No, and
Um,
like I said earlier, this isn't about judgment at all.
mm,
It's all about giving ourselves the knowledge we need to really fully understand the
absolutely.
impact the screens have. And you know,
Yeah.
speaking as a parent with two neurodivergent children, like I'll put my hand up and say, in certain situations, I've just had to go, just let them watch TV
Yeah,
or give her the
exactly.
switch, or
Yeah.
because, I've got to cook the food. They need to eat,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know. So I just think it's getting the balance right. It's not about judging
Yeah.
anybody, but
No,
maybe
definitely.
by sharing this information, people can make their own informed decisions about,
Yeah.
actually, I want to change how we do things, or actually
Yeah.
I'm happy with how we do things. It's
Yeah.
it's it's all a personal decision, really.
Definitely. And I would say that if you're kind of like thinking, right, okay, we need to make a change, you kind of, when you make that change and you decide, right, we're going to reduce our screen time, I think you've got to make it realistic and manageable and something where you can think, actually, like, if the kids do challenge back, well, whether they've got no neurodivergence or not, like, if the kids do challenge back, it's some, do it in a way that you know that you can stick to it and you can maintain those boundaries. You know, so even if it is, I don't know, actually, we're going to limit iPad use to 2 hours a day, whether you break that up in hourly slots and you have an hour when they come home and then an hour
Mm,
for bed or whatever, but stick to something that's easy to maintain or easier to maintain. I think that is the way to do it. And just looking at breaking it up a bit, you know, and maybe having that conversation with your kids as
yeah,
well to be like, okay, this is, we're going to start doing this. We're going to reduce tablet time to wherever. This is why we're going to do it. And just, I think having that open and honest conversation with your kids as well. Because I think
mm,
I've always been open and honest with like Harry had, obviously she's sleeping now. Like she's only 4. Like I can't really have that conversation with her. But
yeah,
Destiny, she's at that age where I can sit with her and be like, you're spending too much time on your phone. We're going to reduce, you know, and just being open and honest and, you know, going
yeah,
from there, you know. But it's not easy. It's a journey. It's definitely a journey.
yeah. Yeah, I think that, like you say, putting boundaries in place that is manageable on a daily basis
Yeah.
is definitely key. But then also having the ability to be flexible in certain situations. So, for example, if you've got a big family gathering coming up, maybe an
Mhm.
anniversary, a birthday party, Christmas party, and you know there's going to be a lot of people, your child struggles in social situations, they would rather kind of be one on one with their own headspace, then maybe giving them a tablet with headphones isn't
Yeah,
the end of the world for an hour
I
or
agree.
so extra, because it's a special circumstance.
Yeah.
rather than then being isolating in their room, thinking, "Oh, I can't be part of this." Is
Hmm.
go, you know what? If they get to be included,
Hmm.
but they're doing something separate, that's okay. So I
Yeah,
think, yeah, it's
definitely.
it's being able to gauge, is this a special circumstance? Could we make, special adjustment to the rules in this
Yeah,
instance?
definitely.
And like I mentioned before, when you're out and about in a restaurant, it's a different circumstance.
Mm.
But if you can reduce it, like for us as a family, we've made a commitment to eat dinner at the dinner table because it's so easy to go
Mhm.
into that thing of, oh, we'll just eat it in the living room. But actually, I enjoy it so much better eating food at the dinner table
Yeah,
together. And, we do have a TV program on because of Lucas. He'll stay calm. So
yeah.
it's not fully tech free, but then we're able to sit together and talk together. And
Mm.
actually, it's really, really nice.
It's important
So I
that.
think, yeah, I think it's nice, and if you can find ways to do without, then do it. Um, because as we said earlier, we're living in a tech world. So even when you're not yourselves as a family going, let's play with the tech, let's do techie things. When you're in school, there's tech. When you're in work, there's tech.
Exactly.
When you're out and
Yeah.
about, there's tech. It's
Mm.
everywhere. And this is coming from a tech queen, okay? I kind of like my tech. I like playing about. I like doing video reels. You know, I like what can make tech creative and kind of like take you on a different journey with being creative. I love it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I'm developing an app for goodness sake, do you know what I mean? To help people. So
Yeah.
I'm a very much the tech queen. I must sound so hypocritical. I'm not. I just think there's a time and a place. It can be used as an aid. So, like the way I want my app to work is visual digital routine,
Yeah.
helps with appointments, helps managing everything in one consistent place. To me, that's a tool
Yeah.
rather than, hey, let's Netflix it, let's Disney Plus it, let's
Yeah.
play Monopoly Go on the Switch, or let's play Mario Kart on the Switch. It's not about entertainment, it's about sustainability and supporting everyday life. But who doesn't love a bit of entertainment? Do you know what I mean? So we've got to keep the balance. We have to.
Yeah. And the thing is, like,
I mean,
society, sorry, society nowadays,
no,
like,
carry on.
society nowadays has made it really difficult to not use technology because you think about, like,
Mm,
I remember like job seekers allowance, like it's all you see now, isn't it? But I remember job seekers allowance, right? You
yeah,
had to go in for your appointment and da da da. And like even job searching is all online. You have to have a phone to do this and you have to have internet to do that. Like
yeah,
everything
it's true.
is online. So like you kind of can't get away from it. So when you're trying to put boundaries in with your kid, be like, no, you'll spend so much time on your phone. And the kids are like, well, you're on your phone. Yeah, love, I'm doing the food shopping. Right? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, it's
mm,
really difficult to maintain them
yeah.
boundaries because they don't understand. Because I remember having the argument with Des once. I was like, right, off she was like on Reels or something. And I was like, right, listen, you've been on there a long time. I don't want you getting caught in the black hole. And she was like, well, you're on your phone. And I'm like, I am making sure we survive. I am buying our food. Huh? That's a bit different. But she
Yeah.
kind of had a point. Like, I'm telling her to get off her phone,
No,
but
it's
yeah, I'm in
true.
mine, you know? But it can be really, so
But then
society doesn't help.
but when you really think about it, like we have become completely reliant on technology
Yeah.
because, I remember when I needed to discuss something, and bearing in mind, when you're not very confident with numbers, you like to speak to somebody face to face,
Mhm.
have them break things down, have them explain things. So for listeners who don't know, I've got dyscalculia, so don't talk to me about that. I don't understand that. Just tell me what the end cost is. I couldn't care less about that. I just need to know what the end cost is because it just gets
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to things like buying a house, like getting out a loan, like things to do with you want to speak to your bank manager, you want someone to make sure you understand so you don't get swindled, so you completely understand the logistics of what you're getting yourself into. To me, that is what a bank is for. You physically
Yeah.
go in and you have a conversation.
Yeah.
But no, you have to do it all through your app. And
Mm.
I love apps, I love tech. But when
Yeah.
it comes to something I'm not confident with, like that,
Mm.
and it's like, oh, when I bought my house, It was like all over the phone, all through the app, all discussions. And I just thought I would much rather be there in person, having somebody reassuring, able to explain it and break it down for me. I mean,
Yeah.
it was okay, but it's not what I would have preferred. And I
Yeah.
think for the older generation, it's
Mm.
very unfair to just be like, well, this is how it is. You just have to accept.
Yeah, I agree.
I think surely, I know they think about the cost of having people in the building and all this nonsense, but as far as I'm concerned, how can we call ourselves an inclusive society if we're not willing to make accommodations for people that
Yeah,
need it? So,
yeah, I
like,
agree.
for the older generation who aren't as tech savvy, why not do like, like you have those pop up shops where people
Yeah.
just pop up? Have a pop up banking guidance service where if any elderly person is unsure, they know on this day at this time they can pop in, ask any advice, get
Hmm.
guided in person, and not have a bot on a
I
phone.
I agree,
I
definitely.
can't stand the bots on the phone.
I know.
They drive
Oh,
me mad.
when you phone a company and they're like, please give me your postcode. Oh, and you like give it and they repeat it
Uh,
back and they're like, is that correct? And you go, no. And they're like, yes. And you're like, no.
no.
And you end up like
Oh
screaming down the
Lord,
phone and
no,
then
no,
they're like,
no.
I will put you through to an assistant. And you're like, ah!
Do you know what? That absolutely drives me balmy.
I
And
know.
when you think of Facebook and their bots,
Oh, I know.
not impressed. Do you know
We
what I
know from
mean? Instead of
experience, don't
talking
we?
to somebody,
I know,
they've
it's
just got
ridiculous.
bots running Facebook. It's like, get a person in there with a personality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. But this is the way the world's going now, isn't it? Like with AI and stuff like that, and it like this is the way the world is going, and it's insane.
And it's difficult because I love certain aspects. It's funny, it's like, I feel like I'm one of those where I promote AI a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of like,
Yeah,
oh, I love this feature. I love this
me
thing. I love
too.
that
Yeah,
thing. But then at the same time, I do have concerns. I think
yeah,
to myself, we've all been made so busy and we've all been, and I'm saying this and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I think that everyday workers are undervalued and underpaid, right? And they're overworked in general, right?
hmm,
Because it's like you need to do this, you need to do that, da, 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 da. And everyone feels like they don't have time. They
yeah,
don't have time to stop and really think about what they need to do.
hmm,
So when you've got an AI and you're like, I really need to create a poster, and you know me, I love creating my posters, I love getting creative. And then I find myself typing into ChatGPT, create me a poster.
yeah,
And I think to myself, are we going to lose a creative generation because
hmm,
everyone is typing into AI, do this for me, do that for me, because nobody has the time to stop and be creative anymore?
yeah, yeah,
It does. I do think about that. And then sometimes you get a poster and there's spelling mistakes. I'm thinking, well, I didn't make those spelling mistakes. So you need to go and get yourself to
yeah,
spelling class AI. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I didn't type those mistakes, you did. But then
yeah.
you can't even edit the poster.
No, and to
So
me,
I
so
just, yeah,
yeah. So I'm going on a controversial edge now. To me, like I personally believe that it's a government agenda. This is the agenda. This is the way they want it to work. We're going to make life tough for people. We're going to make life busy. We're going to make it so both
mm,
of them have to work full time so they can't earn enough money. Then we're going to make life so busy that they need to use AI and AI becomes very handy and people use AI for this
yeah,
and they use AI for that. And what's going to end up happening, AI is going to end up running the country. Like eventually, I'm not talking in like the next 10 years. That's insane. But you think,
yeah,
but you
yeah,
think long way in the future, we're going to rely on AI for everything. Order my food shopping. Order this for me. Order that for me. We already do Amazon Prime,
yeah.
you know. But anyway, controversial. Anyway.
But so just to kind of clarify what I said about being undervalued and underpaid, I'm saying
Mm.
in general as a society,
Oh no, I
when you
agree.
look at the government, so not,
Hmm.
I'm not like I'm not saying bad mouthing anyone,
Oh
but what I'm
no.
saying is the government, they underpay everybody,
Hmm.
and then they put these national tax things for employers to pay a contribution as well as the employees,
Yeah.
then of course when people leave and they need to replace those people, they then consider, well, could we not share the load, because it's the cost, it's
Yeah.
astronomical. And then the
Yeah.
people who are in place being given the extra responsibilities, there's no scope for increased pay. They're feeling overwhelmed. And so the
Mhm.
natural reaction is, how can I get more done quicker? Because I'm just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And so the creativity and the ingenuity and the entrepreneurial minds don't work as they
Mhm.
should, because
Yeah.
it's all AI's there to help. Let's use it, let's use it, let's use it.
I
But
think
I
I
think
seriously think
there
that
is a
people can do.
limit.
I think the more that, because they are working on AI, aren't they? And they're trying to improve it. I
Yeah,
seriously think that AI is going to take over people's jobs. Like it already has. If you think of
yeah,
self checkouts,
yeah,
like it already, and
yeah.
like I can't, like I've done it today. I've been to Aldi this afternoon. Use the self checkout in Aldi. It is quicker. You could consider it is taking people's jobs from them, and eventually, like this is kind of like the
Yeah.
start. And as they kind of like work more on AI and develop it, I think it's gonna be quite big and serious. Like the only, like obviously I work in the care sector as my full-time job. Like that's the only thing that AI can't do.
Mm,
It's only us in the care sector
yeah.
that's kind of safe, really. Because everything else
Mm,
eventually AI is going
mm.
to be able to do.
Yeah, so really when you consider it, I mean obviously we're looking at this a completely different angle, but like you've just said, going shopping, the self-checkout, another screen.
Mm-hmm.
Scan and
Yeah.
go, another screen.
Mm-hmm.
It's screens everywhere. Yeah, but it is all linked to screen pros and cons, because we're
Yeah.
teaching our children, we are teaching them that screens aren't the most important thing in the world. I mean, me and Gordon would say to Elena, you know, what was it she used to do? She used to panic if the switch lost battery or her tablet did. She'd make a big thing about it. And we could be cooking, we could be doing whatever. And she'd be like, my screen, you know. And I'd be like, is it the end of the world?
I'm not
Is it
sure.
really the end of the world?
Mhm.
You know? And it's like, maybe put it on charge, because there would be such a big to do over it. And it's
Mm,
like, it's not more important than family. It's not more important than spending time together.
that's right.
You know,
You
so
know
I
what?
think it is
Mm.
relevant, because we're teaching them that you shouldn't be on screens all the time, and
Yeah.
yet society's filled with it.
Yeah, that's right. You just reminded me. I use that as a discipline for Destiny. I mean, to be fair, she's very good, but I always, if she's gotten a bit of an attitude or she's playing it, which is very rare, I do say to her, I'm like, you carry on, and that charger for your phone and for your tablet will be going, and you will have until the battery runs out, and that'll be it then. You won't have the
Mm.
charger for a week. And that, and she's like that. Oh, better get my
Yeah.
hat. And it does work. So if that's a way of managing time, tablet time, you think
Mm.
actually I don't like your attitude, and even if before you say anything,
Yeah.
get rid of that. Just remove all the chargers, hide the chargers around the house, and then if you need to, say right, you've got until that battery runs out, and once it runs out, that is it. You know, that just reminded me. But you are right. Technology is everywhere. Like I've got for me now, like carry on by you now, sleeping. Like I've got the telly on upstairs, who's watching a film before coming down to do this. I've got the telly on down here.
Yeah.
And so I do it myself. It's like, oh, I need you to be quiet for 5 minutes. I'm filming a minute now. Da, da. Obviously, she's 4. She doesn't
Yeah.
understand.
Well,
But it does.
well, we all do it, don't we?
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
all.
it is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, like, how when we were kids, we used to play in the garden. We used to, use our imaginations and pretend to be characters and do all these things and play on our skipping ropes and
Yeah.
tic-tac-toe and all sorts. So like as a family, like our garden is horrendous, and we're looking at applying for a grant to get the garden done up,
Amazing.
because Lucas, for him in particular, if you took screens away, you would need an alternative, and he loves being outside.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's not a safe space
Mm.
for him to really play. So we're hoping once that's sorted, that can be an alternative.
Yeah.
So I think it's always important to explore other options to try and engage your children.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm a big believer, like, me and the kids quite like that gem art. So the one year for Christmas, I picked them up just as, it was like, oh, I don't know what to get the kids. Oh, they'll do. And they loved them. And Destiny in particular was like well into it. And I can't remember how many gems were in it, but it was like quite a lot of gems. And she loved it. Well, all the kids love them all. So we've done quite a few now. So things like that,
Mm.
like some Saturdays, especially when the weather's a bit pants, I'd be like, right, we're not going to put the telly on. We're just going to sit at the table and we're going to do our gems, and it's great. So
Yeah,
it may be, so I'm not too over. Maybe it's like finding alternatives as well, like creative ways. It's good for their hand-eye coordination. It's good for their cognitive skills. It's good, just something different in it to break up the time as well. Because
absolutely.
I remember when Destiny was like 2, and Frozen had just come out, and oh my gosh, oh, I remember
Oh my word.
one day. Oh, I had sat and watched Frozen, and we was DVDs back then. Not many kids know what DVDs are anymore. And we watched the DVD all day, and I mean all day. And all she did was let
Oh
go, let go, running around with nappies on her
no.
head, and it was just like, oh. And I remember from that day on thinking, I will never do this again. I am never sitting here watching Frozen ever again. And from that day, I decided, yeah, I'm not sitting in front of a TV all day. And I fair play, I have
No.
to stick to it because you just can't. Like, it'll fry your own brain and mind your kids.
Yeah, and I think when like you're not well or your children aren't well, then that's the time you
Yeah,
catch up. You're not well, and you can and half the time you're not even fully watching TV because you're unwell and you end up closing your eyes and you fall asleep.
yeah,
But that's the time when you think, okay, a pass. Like let's
yeah.
give ourselves a pass. We'll watch TV.
That's different
But
then.
there's so many things you can get done when you're not watching TV all the time.
True.
Let's face it.
Oh, I agree with you.
For
Definitely.
example,
Yeah, go on.
we're doing this podcast right now because we're not watching TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Do
Definitely.
you know what? We've made time for it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
both work full
absolutely.
time, we both have kids, and we've made time to do it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Challenge
Yeah.
for our listeners if you want to start a podcast.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is right though, isn't it? Like, so many of us, we sit like, oh, I haven't had time for this and I haven't had time for that. And da, 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 da. Well, what have you done today? Well, I watched Sort Your Life Out. Then I watched, do you know what I mean? Like, well, it's like, actually, when we consider,
Yeah,
we haven't actually done much for nowadays. Like, I mean, I am quite a busy person because I obviously do my job and I run the business on site, don't I? So I am quite busy, but I like that. Like, I quite like being busy. Like, dropped the kids off to school this morning,
mm,
went out to see my first client, then booked to see my friend who I've long had a baby, went to see her and the baby, pick Harry up from school, came home, like, and I like that.
yeah,
I feel like productive, you know, not all the time. Like
yeah.
Saturday came on from my full time job and led on the settee all day. No, I didn't actually. I did do a bit of practicing for some stuff, but then I did fall asleep at 6 o'clock in the afternoon and had a nap, and then which was great up until like
And that's
1 o'clock.
okay.
Yeah, until 1 o'clock in the morning when you can't get back to sleep. You're like, ugh.
Oh, so you didn't just have a nap, you had an extended nap, let's face it.
Yeah. Well, the problem was,
Truths.
well, what had happened was I was watching the telly, and my intention was to go to bed at 8:30, not set an alarm the next morning, and think, let's just catch up on sleep. So I must have
Mm,
just dropped off without even realising it on the settee, and there must have been a noise on the telly that woke me up, and I was like, ugh,
mm.
5 minutes.
Oh
I
no.
was like, I don't know how long I'd been slept. I don't know how long I'd slept, and I was like, oh no. So it was about 1 o'clock in the morning before I got to sleep there. I was like,
Fair.
and I ended up looking
Now,
to
speaking of sleep and screens, because we
yeah,
are talking about screens in
yeah,
general, really, as well. I can't sleep without the TV on.
yeah,
So for me, because of my ADHD brain hashtag, it goes ding, 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 ding. As soon as I put my head on the pillow and it's all calm and it's all quiet, that's when my brain goes, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, I want to go to sleep. So if I put on a program I've seen before, I'll start watching it, and then when I feel tired enough, I'll go right, and I'll turn to my side and I'll listen and then I'll fall asleep.
Yeah,
So I have to have the TV on to fall asleep.
yeah,
So I know the studies say don't watch TV an hour before bed, but I think for my brain, I don't know what it is. It's something to do with the sound and the background noise. It really helps me.
yeah.
So probably if I listened to music or had that background noise, it probably doesn't have to be the screen, but just having something in the background helps me fall asleep.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm a bit the same. I need the telly on to go to sleep. Like for me, it's not because of my brain. I'm a bit of a child. I don't like the dark.
It's not because of my
Like
brain. My brain's fine.
my brain is fine. My one brain cell works. Um, but like I just don't like the dark. I'm just a bit of a baby. I don't like the dark, so I like to have the telly on just to go to sleep. Although in work, I'm a lot better. Weirdly enough, I can kind of like shut my eyes.
Mm,
But in the work, we've got these like Wi-Fi extenders in the bedrooms, so there is a light that comes off the extender,
right.
so it's not totally dark. And plus, I'm so knackered in work that I just like. But whereas at home, I do put the telly on, but a bit like you, I put one of my favourite films on that I've seen before, and I don't even watch it. I just turn over and listen to it, and like almost like watch the film in my
Yeah.
mind, if that makes sense. But then
Yeah.
the telly does turn itself off at 2 in the morning. But yeah, I'm one of those too. I got to have the telly on. It's funny, isn't it? And Destiny's a
There
bit the
we go.
same.
Yeah.
But Destiny will listen to music. Like she's not so much of a film person. She like puts soaking music on or
No.
scriptures on or something like that. But her problem
Yeah.
is she won't turn the flipping thing off. And yes, that's a bit of a problem. Very much so. It's really annoying. Don't get me wrong.
Right. So I think we've very well covered screen time pros and cons. So just to round it up nicely, we've talked about how as much as screen time is part of our everyday life, if we can try and find alternative activities, then that is something we'd recommend
Yeah.
because obviously of how much, it says, 6 hours a day on average
Mhm.
for young people globally is a lot.
That
But
is a lot.
also, we've talked about being kind to ourselves. We've
Mhm.
talked about, the need to assess the situation. And sometimes it's not about being stuck to a screen, but also using it as a communication aid, using it for developing skills, using it to self regulate. So it's not all negative,
Yeah.
is the good news.
Yeah.
But at the same time, finding balance in a techie world is challenging.
Yeah.
So that'll be it for today's episode.
Yeah.
Please subscribe because we're awesome. No, genuinely.
Yeah.
Hit the like button, subscribe, hashtag. Um, and, if you have anything you want to reach out about following the episode, please do. We're always happy
Yeah.
to chat things out. Or if you've got suggestions for future episodes, we're open to that. And thank you for joining us, guys.
Yeah. Thank you very much.